The appropriate solution, therefore, needs to change a little bit. And that's not even to mention competition. Someone's going to come in with a better mousetrap that raises the bar for the way that you solve your own problem. And if you're not keeping ahead of that, if you're not anticipating where the problem space that you work on is going, you're going to fall behind, and your lunch is going to get eaten by a competitor.
Welcome to the B2B Digital Marketer Podcast, a podcast helping you to end your struggle with digital marketing, helping you to pave a new and better path to target and capture your ideal customer. Each week, we teach you how insiders and experts debunk the dreary and become engines of innovation. Now, here's your host, Jim Rembach.
Okay, B2B DM gang, we're going to have a fantastic discussion today because I have Matt Young on the show with me today. Matt, welcome.
Hey, Jim. Thanks.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about how to actually be a product marketing fit innovator. You know, we've seen all these stories in regards to disruption being disruptive. We have all these experiences in regards to what people have said is our VUCA world, VUCA, which is volatility, uncertainty, complexity and ambiguity. And so when you start talking about how do you be that next innovator and that next disruptor, that's what Matt actually specializes in. So Matt, if you could tell us a little bit about, your experience and what you're bringing to the table in this discussion today.
Sure thing. So I'm the CEO of a company called User Voice, and User Voice is a 15-year-old SaaS company that was the first one out there that really tried to lean into getting feedback about product from your customers directly in their voice so that you could understand what was in their head, what their needs were, and help improve your products from that perspective. I wasn't a founder of the company, but I was brought in as the VP of engineering. And the appeal in joining the company 7 years ago at this point was that I was being tasked by product teams to take a very large engineering team and build a bunch of stuff. And I didn't believe in it because there wasn't the information behind it to say that, yes, this is going to make a difference for our business or really solve the problem of our customers. Fast forward a bunch of years later, I'm now the CEO of the company. I believe passionately that the use of information coming from your customer base and really keeping your eyes and ears open is the thing that's necessary to help you solve the real problems that are out there in the market.
And this is so vitally important for B2B marketers and B2B sellers, because if we start talking about, what is the right messaging? What are the right questions to ask? What do we need to do in order to stand out from our competition? I mean, all of the things that Matt's talking about are vital because they will resonate, with your ideal customers and your ideal customer profile. Isn't that correct, Matt?
It's very true. All the research that a product team does, all the research that a marketing team does, even whether you know it or not, your sales team, every time they do a demo, is doing a little bit of research. They're getting a little bit of feedback from people. And if you leave that on the floor, it's this missed opportunity for your product team to learn about where the objections were, what the real fears and worries that a potential customer came to you with, and they were presented to you. You want to be able to take advantage of that stuff. And if you miss out on it, A, you might build a poor product, but B, reflecting that language that came to you in the first place directly from your customers back in your marketing messaging and how you sell your product really helps connect with people directly. So we really strongly believe that listening and making sure that you capture all that information, and as an organization holistically, not just as a sales team or a marketing team or a product team, that you take advantage of all that stuff and get everyone on the same page.
Well, and as you're talking, I'm sitting here and things are just rolling through my head. And when I start thinking about, differentiation and value being delivered, when I start, talking about retention and stickiness, all these things are really vital and core components. But here's the problem is when you start looking at, the skill sets and skill level and abilities in being able to do this, they're not plentiful, right? However, you say that they are very learnable.
Oh, they are, certainly. I think that people are very afraid of the word research because I think they picture people in white lab coats doing very serious things to move humanity forward. Where really research is as simple as having a good conversation, having an effective conversation, asking the right questions, and learning the right things. And I think the first thing I always tell a product manager who's worried about how to test a solution or how to understand if they're the right track is to really dig into what is the problem that you're actually solving. Can you articulate that concisely and clearly? And is that resonating with the person that you're talking to? There are a million solutions to the problem out there, but if you don't get the problem right, doesn't matter what you build, it's not going to help you grow your business.
Well, and as you're talking, I start even getting to the whole, why do people do business with other people? That there has to be a strong trust element that exists there. And if I don't feel you get me, you're not going to get me, if that makes sense.
We do. We sell our software to product teams usually. So I spend a lot of time making sure that anyone in a sales role or in a retention role really understands product management and what they do, because the credibility there is important. But that's true of any company selling any product to an industry or to a consumer of a business. You need to understand what they do and what their job is and what their problems might be.
Okay, so then with that, there's some issues. Okay, so maybe I learned these skills and you know what? I've got all this product marketing fit thing down. You say, this is a very fluid activity, and that product marketing fit always changes. What do you mean by that?
It does. So there's a lot of focus on achieving product market fit. Most startups, like that's a very major milestone that they're trying to get. And usually product market fit has a million different directions. That's a subject of definitions. It's a subject of a whole different conversation. But I think most people will agree that once you start selling more software than you're capable of handling as the team you've got, and you need to expand, you've got product market fit and it's growing. But once you achieve it, that starts to decay. It starts fading away. And that can happen through a variety of different mechanisms. The world changes around you. A pandemic might show up and we all start going remote. That's a very tactical and unusual change that happens. But the very common thing that happens is that the world evolves and people's jobs change and the way they do their jobs change. So your solution for a particular problem that happened yesterday may not be the right solution tomorrow. The problem may change subtly. The appropriate solution, therefore, needs to change a little bit. And that's not even to mention competition. Someone's going to come in with a better mousetrap that raises the bar for the way that you solve your own problem. And if you're not keeping ahead of that, if you're not anticipating where the problem space that you work on is going, you're going to fall behind and your lunch is going to get eaten by a competitor.
Well, and then you say, as far as these, skills and abilities, and then therefore even get into the point of, building some competencies and mastering all of this, is that people really have to understand the difference between problems versus solutions. So what do you mean by problems versus solutions in regards to product market fit?
Yeah, if you think about software that you love, the stuff that you log into every day that you feel like it's indispensable to your life. For me, that's Superhuman, the email client. I feel like they nailed it. It isn't the user interface. It's got a really nice user interface, and that's an important part of me enjoying the experience. But it really solves the problem of making a very large email stream coming my way manageable. I can triage it. I can use it as a workflow for myself. That is the problem that needs to be solved. We all get too much email. There's a lot of noise. It's very easy to miss something in your email that is important and leave someone waiting. But they solved that problem because of the workflows that they created through the product. The solution, all the pieces of the interface, et cetera, are a good thing. But 20 years ago, the amount of spam that we all get wasn't nearly as great as it is today. So if they built this product a long time ago, it wouldn't have had all the spam features that it has in mind, the ability to put aside, even if it's not spam, even if it's just someone's marketing newsletter or something that you kind of want to read, but you don't want to have it interrupt your moment right now. Their understanding of us all feeling that same pain of an unmanageable inbox, that was the problem that they needed to solve. Solution's great. That solution will need to change over time. They're adding calendaring features and things like that in there that are important peripheral things that are going to keep me engaged and keep me paying for the software. But I feel like they nailed the problem, which was the most important thing that they've done.
Yeah, as you say that, I have to latch on to something. You start talking about product marketing fit, and you start talking about problems versus solutions. I had an old mentor of mine say, and I've been saying this often lately, is when it comes to B2B, marketing and lead generation, all of it. He says, look, nobody wants your frickin' newsletter.
It is true.
It is true. So figure out something different.
Yeah, there's a whole psychology of that. Like the newsletter, we send out a newsletter, and I realize that no one really wants the newsletter. But the point is, I want to keep our company's name top of mind for people. And so the newsletter is less about being super engaging and more about not annoying people into opting out of it.
Well, okay. So you bring up a really interesting point, is that if you think about product marketing fit and you start, looking at how do I actually make a difference to solve, these problems, or these problems to solve for our ideal customers, and all of that, is that some of these things we get quite arrogant about. And it's like, they may not even really need this to solve for, but I'm going to give it to them anyway because I think it's important. I mean, how do we balance that?
Yeah, that's, I think what you're getting into is the ability to really conduct an honest interview with people where you, the interviewer, can put your ego aside and really listen, really listen to what people are telling you and help them express to you their problems in ways that they might not have thought of yet. Most conversations between a product manager and a customer start at a very high level around solutions with something very tactical. You might have a customer and they come to you and say, well, could you add this report? That would help me out a lot because I'm generating that. And if a product manager doesn't ask, yeah, we can consider that. What do you do with that report? What does it accomplish for you? Who are you showing it to? How often are you running it? What is it for? It's depriving them of the opportunity to actually innovate, which is, maybe this report that they asked you for is a decent solution for that person, but you're trying to create a solution that's broadly applicable to your entire customer base. And hopefully you've got some creativity and some mental chops and some industry expertise in your own organization that can build a better mousetrap than the one that one person suggested to you. But if you don't understand the why underneath the request, you're going to build something that's okay, but it might not have really long legs to survive in the future.
So as you're saying that, I start thinking, about the question that oftentimes people may ask is like, what's the difference between customer satisfaction and problems to solve for? And I think you were really getting to the crux of what that really means right there, right?
Yeah, you may be satisfied, but I feel like that is a very in the moment thing. I'm satisfied today. I think we've all seen every different flavor of NPS type survey that goes out to understand where people are in their heads right now. But if you are perpetually iterating on solutions to problems that are moving with the times and getting better, that's how you're going to maintain customer satisfaction over time. It's not just how do you feel today, but how will you feel tomorrow, and especially when renewal time comes up in a B2B SaaS environment.
So I think you also started really hitting on some of the pitfalls associated with problem identification. So I would dare to say you oftentimes run across, some of the things that people are doing that's not going to help them to get to the point of, problem identification, with which will now allow them to be creative in their thinking and innovate. So what are some of the common pitfalls that you see in regards to problem identification? Some of them you've already mentioned, but maybe you can summarize them for us.
Yeah, I think I look at three different things when I'm trying to think about a problem. The first is what is the problem? Of course, that's the thing that's obvious to get at. Who is it for? Most B2B companies will have personas identified. If you don't, that's a problem. But if you do, making sure you're articulating who this problem affects most strongly. And then for your business, what is the potential value of the solution? If you solve this problem, is this going to be a little thing that helps out, or is this going to be a industry changing, revenue generating monster because it's something that none of your competition has, and it is these are rare, but like just a home run solution to a real problem that a lot of people have. And I think the framework for identifying the value to your company, and this is something that I know you guys have touched on in previous episodes of the podcast, is making sure that goals are clearly defined, that the business strategy is there, it's well articulated, and that you can relate the value of a problem you're solving to the business and what that's going to do for people in the end.
Okay, so gosh, it seems like a massive undertaking, right?
It does, yeah.
And then you and I had this discussion before we started recording in regards to information and insight that people have in their own well that they can draw upon, and we talked about how there's skills that need to be built that are capable of being built, but ultimately what we're trying to get to, and the goal being, is getting to the point to where we are able and capable of applying the art and science of anticipation. What do we really mean by that?
Yeah, that's true. Like your job as a product company, if you want to stay in business, is to anticipate where the market is headed, what your buyers are looking for you to help them with, what the problems are to solve. And I think all of that sounds really overwhelming, and it sounds like a big, complicated process that you need to put in place. And I always coach our customers to you don't need to spend 3 months thinking about what your new feedback process is going to be. I just want them to get started. Anything that you do at all is going to be better than doing nothing. And it's going to be your first step towards learning how to be really, really good at this. I think one of the common things that comes up a lot lately, and I can't remember who to attribute this quote to, but embarrassment is your price of entry to be great at something. You have to be willing to suck at something, give it a shot, try it. Your first customer interviews are going to be awkward, and you're going to leave them saying, yeah, we spent too much time talking about solutions, and I really don't think I understand what the problem is. But if you can debrief with yourself or with a colleague afterwards and say, all right, well, how can I change this question to get to the crux of the matter a little bit more carefully later? Advise people to start with themselves, get some practice, and then you are going to start growing yourself as a resource for the rest of the company. How do you as a product manager help a salesperson whose motivation is to sell software and earn commissions and things like that join your team and ask the right question at the right time, so that you're getting this free extra bit of research done as a part of a job that they were already doing? And if you can start sprinkling little pieces of advice around the organization, you're going to start building this information pipe that's indispensable, that will be coming your way. But all of that just starts with you doing a few interviews with customers, having a few conversations, really being empathetic with their needs and trying to understand what they need. And if you feel good at the end, I understand what that person's problems are and why I can help them, you're going to be in a much better place than you were if you're being very tactical. And that is the thing that you need to anticipate where your company will need to be a quarter, 2 quarters, and a year from now.
As you're talking, I start talking about organizational alignment. And the fact is that I want my marketers and I want my, salespeople to actually go through those same types of, exercises, activities, and skill attainment, because those are the people that are going to be viewed and seen, by our existing clients and customers and our potential clients and customers as that value added advisors and trusted advisors. If they don't get to that point of skill level, and again, like you said, people can obtain it. It's just, thinking differently and doing differently than my competition will be, because my competition is just worried about, for example, getting appointments, getting demos. Well, what I'm doing is I'm helping to solve problems. Very big difference.
It's a completely different thing. Once a competitor of yours starts speaking the language of their buyer, they become a much more trusted advisor, and therefore the credibility of your solution goes through the roof. So I completely agree that getting anyone on the front lines of your organization to be credible, to be empathetic to the problems that exist, that's going to close deals more easily. It's going to create higher levels of retention. People will feel an absence, I felt like I could go to this person at this company and ask them a question when I was having a problem at my job. And maybe it was or wasn't related to the product that they sell, but I I value their opinion and I think they're good at it. So just a general life skill that's good is to be able to understand other people's problems, but particularly in B2B, making sure that you understand the domain that you're selling into is critical.
Well, it starts reminding me, and I start thinking of, this isn't about features and functions, kids.
No, not at all.
And so,
not at all. Those are a dime a dozen, right? The whistles and bells are cool, but man, if you look at the hit and miss rate of features that people add to their products, there's much more trash than there is gold that people end up creating, and that's all attributed to the quality of research that they do. And if you think about it, this is massive waste of spend. We figured out that we work in 8-week engineering cycles. And for us, an 8-week engineering cycle costs us $440,000 in salary expenses. I mean, when you add up the people and all that, that's not to mention the opportunity time. So when we are making a decision going into an 8-week cycle, deciding what we're building, we're placing a $440,000 bet. That is not insignificant. We're a small company. I got to be careful about that stuff. So if everyone shortchanges research and really understanding those problems, and it's so worth it to get good at it. Your win to loss rate on the features that you release actually solving problems will go through the roof.
That's very powerful right there. Because even for me, as I start thinking about, well, how does what you're just mentioning right there apply, to B2B selling and B2B marketing? Is that every single day we're making a bet on what we're investing in regards to our time and our activity. Mm-hmm. And what bet are you willing to make? So like, for example, I have constant conversations with people about, look at just what has happened in regards to, demand generation and things like that. And, for me, I think that all of these platforms are sitting back there and just laughing at us. Like LinkedIn, their ad revenues keep going up. Facebook, their ad revenues keep going up. And they're just sitting saying, hey, keep on creating more content, guys.
Yeah, keep spending more because you need to if you want to get the same level of response that you had 2 years ago. I often joke that one of marketing's jobs is to take any medium that we all enjoy and ruin it. We all remember back when blogs were useful, and now they're very thinly veiled attempts in most cases to sell something. But it's this trap, right? Like you might say to yourself in marketing, yeah, we need to create more blog content because that's what you do. But is there any data backing what the outcome of that will be? Have you done the research? Have you figured it out? Or is that a medium that we should stop paying attention to and look to something else? And I think this mentality that we use in product management, it does apply in sales. It does apply in marketing. Who are the segments you want to go after in sales? What are the campaigns you want to do? How do you want to change your relationship between demos and free trials and even the commercial aspects? Like if we rethink how we want to do contracts or how we want to do renewals, what will the outcome of all that effort be? You can research that up front and figure out whether it's going to pay off in the way that you will think.
Okay, so this gets back to something that we were discussing before we started recording, and for me, oftentimes when I start, of course, looking back on previous discussions that I've had with other people, and for me, understanding what people call their ecosystem becomes vitally important. Even when you started talking about anticipation, people may sit there and say, there's no way in the world we could have anticipated COVID. I'm like, really? If you actually look at some of the stories, there's some stories where some event companies took out specific insurance policies in regards to pandemics. Mm-hmm. How did they know to do that? Right. So, did somebody just sell them something that they didn't even know and sign off on it? I don't think so. I think it was very intentional. But how did they do that? So what we have to do in order to be successful at selling and marketing and, product marketing and all that is understand our problem ecosystem, don't we?
We do. And the temptation is to leave your product ecosystem. And I think that's the most important thing to avoid. Most people, I think, when they achieve product market fit the first time or when they start their company, they had a really clear picture of the problem that they were trying to solve, and they knew who it was for, and they knew why the problem was valuable to solve. And then they're sitting around one day in their room and they're looking at their competitors and say, well, they built X. Or I had this prospect come in and they said, hey, do you also do whatever? And some salesperson is jumping up and down and saying, like, I'm not going to close this deal unless we have feature X. But you as a company really need to be able to say, like, no, that's really someone else's job to solve that problem. There's other vendors who do that well. By moving outside of this ecosystem, it dilutes our ability to really solve problems in our ecosystem as effectively as we possibly can. And that, that distraction from what you're really trying to do, that's the thing that can put you into a tailspin of a year of flagging sales and something, until someone wakes up and realizes, like, we went too far down this rabbit hole of something that everyone thought was a good idea because it does seem like a real problem. But if it doesn't fit into your space, you're going in the wrong direction.
Man, when you said that, it reminds me of the story I heard, and I don't know exactly, but okay, so this is like several years of hearing the story, but is they talked about the situation where somebody at Southwest Airlines came to at the time CEO Herb Keller and said, hey, we have this very frequent flight from LA to Dallas, and it's in the middle part of the day. People leave afternoon, and they were like, to be customer centric and customer focused, we should serve something like a chicken salad, on this particular flight. And Herb, the dialogue went something along the lines of, well, does that allow us to turn our plane around faster, which is what one of our core objectives is. And then he talked about their core objectives as far as, fast turnaround times and things like that. And the person said, well, no. He goes, then we ain't serving no frickin' chicken salad.
Yeah. I mean, why do you engage Southwest Airlines? You want to get, when you want to get to the place you need to get to, you're not really looking at them to be a restaurant. And, if food becomes your primary focus as an airline, then yeah, that's the goal, turning the planes around as fast as you can. That's what you need to be focused on.
Well, then I start thinking about the whole, experience building in regards to product marketing fit. And again, it doesn't matter whether it's a salesperson, a marketing person in B2B. I start thinking about at what point, how do we understand some of those boundaries? And I'll give you an example. I was speaking with a potential client yesterday, and they wanted to have a meeting internally, and they were like, send me some stuff. And I said, no, I'm not. Like, well, what do you mean? I said, the things that I'm going to send you from a contextual perspective need for me to not set you up for failure, needs to have me to come along with it to answer any questions that you may have. And then also, help you to understand whether or not you drew the wrong conclusion. I said, this isn't something that you're, very familiar with. Right. And I said, that wouldn't be fair. And that was a shock to them.
But I think it's become this very critical part of any customer's relationship with a company that they do business with. The product itself is not enough. The software solution isn't the end of the story. You need to have the people. And I think that, we're all working from home now. So the line between working and your home life and your personal life is it's gone at this point. It's not just blurred, it's gone. So you're expecting the companies you work with to almost be like your friends, to be trusted people. So in our business, I think that the software that we sell is maybe 40% of the product that we sell, because it's our ability to support people and give them best practices and good advice and be there when they need us to help with a problem. And just like you said, like if I send you a slide deck to take into a meeting that's going to cause you to embarrass yourself or convey the wrong message, I'm not doing a good job being a vendor for you. So yeah, sometimes it is a little bit of tough love that goes a long way. And in the end, I'm hoping that the person that you spoke with appreciated that and really thought that this was not you not giving in to what they wanted you to do, but you actually providing a higher quality and higher level of service to them.
And they did. So, and then also this was at the tail end of a 60-minute conversation, and what subsequently happened is they scheduled a meeting for later in the afternoon in order for us to have that type of dialogue and exchange based off of what their internal discussions were. So it did.
That's great.
it did add value to them. And I mean, they also, talking about the problems to solve for, they have tried to solve this problem with a couple different types of avenues and solutions, and have failed every single time. So they also are at a point of, I need to take a different, a different approach.
Yeah. This tactic is a really important one. And everyone will tell you, like, in my role as a CEO, everyone says, well, you need to learn how to delegate because you can't scale. You can't be in every meeting. You can't be everywhere. But if I can join a meeting with a customer, like, that's gold. Like, I can hear directly from them in their own words what their challenges are. Why wouldn't I do that? Of course I will. I will take every opportunity I get to get free, unvarnished information out of people. And it also helps me practice my chops of, like, it's funny how blunt people will be with the CEO of an organization because they feel like they can beat up on you a little bit. I welcome it, like, because I think everyone wants to be really nice to the sales development representative who they know is just out of school, or the AE who they want to be buddy with. But the CEO, nope, I can come in with both barrels blazing and hit you with what my concerns are and what my dislikes are. And I grew up in the Northeast, and being someone who grew up around New York City, I like cutting to the quick really fast. So it's valuable and suits my lifestyle quite well.
So I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, and I have a very similar type of behavior. But moving and living down south, when we moved away when I was 16 years old, and that oftentimes isn't welcomed.
Yeah, I think I live about an hour and a half away from you, and I moved down to the south for graduate school in the 90s, and have lived here ever since. And it's you do have to calibrate based on your audience a bit.
And then because of that, for me, I actually took a path of, I became certified in emotional intelligence. I'm like, okay, how can I navigate this a little bit better so that I can connect with more people? But then again, at some point you just say, you know what, we're not a right fit. See ya. And that's okay.
Do you get I have this nagging feeling, I don't know if you feel the same, that you're subtly manipulating people by changing the way that you relate to them based on their personality. I know that is a reasonable strategy. It's polite, but always in the back of my head, I feel like I feel like I'm playing a role at times.
Well, so this is an interesting point, and I think what you're mentioning right here, from an organizational perspective, collaboration perspective, oftentimes we cause roadblocks for ourselves because we start thinking, oh gosh, I'm manipulating people, I'm doing this. But you have to look at what your cause and your intent is. So if I'm trying to rip them off, well, then that's a problem. That's
terrible. Yeah.
Right. But if I'm trying to actually create a relationship and build value and make a difference in our lives mutually, then you absolutely should use every single power and skill set that you have in order to be able to persuade and influence, because you're doing it for the greater good.
Yeah. And that's where I've landed. It's not an inauthentic desire to help people out. I'm not trying to serve my own needs or anything like that. I feel like value is created by actually solving real problems for people. So thank you. I feel a little bit better about my self-doubts.
Well, and I think that's just it. And I think a lot of our younger generation, will fall into that. Well, a lot of people fall into that trap. And I think social media and all the things that we see out there has enabled us to fall into that trap faster. I think we need to be beacons of light and positivity and make a difference in people's lives and use those skills to the highest level that we possibly can.
I agree with that. And it's one of the reasons that we don't market our tool as a way for you to make more money. We market as a way for you to help people solve problems. I think I'm tired of the companies that go through huge marketing efforts and underneath it, there's nothing but fluff in reality. So I really want to help the world as a whole advance and just make better products that solve problems for people.
Well, that's a whole nother founder's trap and CEO trap, is when we look at organizations that are doing that and we're like, but their product is crap. Yeah.
And yet it works. Yeah.
They know how to sell the heck out of it, right?
They do. You could do both, right? You can sell the crap out of a really good product. And that's, I think, what we should all aspire to.
That's the way I believe.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the camaraderie and sharing of that and the message to everyone. So, Matt, awesome conversation. Matt Young, how does the B2B DM gang get in touch with you?
Uservoice.com. If you want to learn about our products and services, my email address is matt@uservoice.com. Be very hypocritical of me to not want to have conversations with people and get any feedback that they've got. So please reach out if you think a conversation would be worthwhile.
Matt Young, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom, and we wish you the very best.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us. Go now to join the B2B DM gang in the B2B Marketer LinkedIn group, where you can connect with other B2B DM disruptors and get access to our B2B DM cheat sheets, checklist, and guides. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, please help by going to iTunes to rate, review, and subscribe. And share the show on all of your digital platforms. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode. And always remember, you can automate your lead capture, but you must lure your lead.